And so they just showed up to see what was going to happen. We've got, I guess the phrase, we've got looky-loos. Just coming to look. Some people showed up because they probably figured if they hung around long enough, there might be some food. We know how it works. Come on. Free show over here, and there's probably going to be snacks. Some people showed up, and they were hungry, but they knew they were hungry for more than just food. They'd been a part of the teaching. They'd been a part of the sharing, and they actually decided to stay. Some people showed up and ate and were well fed, and they just kept following Jesus thereafter without ceasing. The reason I like this is that Jesus never makes a distinction, never criticizes, and you know Jesus has the right to criticize. He could have easily said, oh, you folks who just showed up because you want a free meal, go home. He could have done that. I like this because he says all those folks come, and he never criticized one of them. The people who showed up for a meal, the people who showed up out of curiosity. You know what he did and why I like this so much? He made sure they were well fed and let them go. No higher price tag for any, no discrimination, no carving out of people. He just made sure they were all well fed. Church, if we don't learn anything else, we better learn that one piece. If we don't get anything else, we better get that one thing. When people come, we got to make sure they're well fed. Whether they deserve it or not, we've got to make sure we follow this modeling that Jesus has done for host and for Holy Eucharist. I like this because what I've learned from Matthew is this. You come to communion time, I'm going to break the bread a little early. It's okay. It's still going to be blessed. I like this because we come to this time and we say, the bread of Christ for you. What we don't say and what Jesus didn't say, okay, I'm holding the bread, so it's mine. You want some of this? You got to please me. It's not the way it goes down, is it? Christ doesn't say, Eric, you are unready today. No bread. That's not the way it happens, is it? It doesn't go down like this. Jesus doesn't actually look around at the folks and say, the bread is ready. Yes, Gerald, you can have bread, but only if you like me today. If you mad at me today, go home. No bread for you. This bread is unconditional. It's not a bread, for example, where we look around, or Jesus looks around and he says, David, I see you in protest over the wheat farmers. Solidarity with the wheat farmers. No bread. This is not that kind of bread, folks. It's not that kind of kingdom. Thanks be to God. This bread, the body of Christ, and this cup, the blood of Christ, is for everyone. And Christ has a design in this kingdom he's introducing where everyone gets well fed. I like this Matthew word so much, not just because of all that, but because of this other point. Jesus knows that people were starving. Just like today, folks. Every day, people are dying by virtue of starvation. Despite the fact that God has created a world that is capable of feeding all the people. No, it's not distributed in all the places where people can get it, so people are starving. I like this word in Matthew because I know God has created a world where all the people can be fed. I like this because I know, just like Jesus knew then, just like you know, people are starving spiritually. There is a hunger today that is spread worldwide. There is a spiritual hunger. And we have access. We have access to the solution for that spiritual hunger. Let me say it this way. After the service, we're all loading onto a bus. We're going to county fair or country buffet or somewhere, but we're not going to touch the food. How's that? We're just going to load up on the bus. We're going to go over to Perkins Pickens County but nobody gets to touch the food. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? That'd be downright nonsense. Because it's there for the eating, it's there for the nourishment. It would be an equal travesty to say, we know that there is a need, a spiritual need, and every person needs connection. Every person needs community. And we have access to Jesus the Christ. But instead of sharing Christ with others, we simply come to church, we get filled up, and then we leave and stick it under a bushel so that the light of Christ doesn't shine through us. So that those around us in the community who are starving spiritually can remain hungry. That would be a travesty, wouldn't it? And so what Jesus introduces in this feeding of the 5,000 is a two-part kind of thing. He shows us the model of a host, and what it means to be a good host, and to model great hospitality. And then he partners that up with asking and telling the disciples, his disciples, to take responsibility for feeding hungry people. That applies for the church today. When Jesus says, no, don't send them home hungry, I hear him talking to us. I hear him talking to me. I hear those words and I have to take them personally. I have to hear them personally. When Christ says, you feed them. Yes, they're hungry. So feed them. I look at this model that Christ has given us, and my thinking is, the church needs to be a part of feeding them well. That's our role. That everyone is well fed, especially physically and spiritually. Because I said it before, I'll say it again, even the most hardcore introvert needs someone. Let me say that same thing differently. Some folk can really only get along with one person at a time. I'm not trying to be real, just trying to be real about it. There's some of us who, we can get along with one person at a time, but we look at the rest of the world and we say, I'm sick of people. I don't want anything to do with them. That soon send the rest of the people away. Well, even that person who can only really connect with one person at a time still needs community. Still needs connection. Still needs an interacting and a sharing, caring. So even if everyone around us was like that one hardcore introvert, they're still seeking connection. They still need it. And Christ, I think, is pretty clear. Even if we're talking about the Great Commission or others, I think Matthew is clear too. Feed them. Feed them. Offer them Christ. So this is one of the ways that I hear so much of this word that's packed into Matthew chapter 14. With these verses that tell us about how Jesus gathered together with 4,000 or 5,000 people, and everyone was satisfied, having not yet counted the women and children and all others gathered, and everyone was well fed.